What I'm about to discuss, it has been very controversial in the world of Twitter and in my videos, but it's very important I explain my point here. And by the way, I really love engaging on Twitter. As controversial as it can be, follow me on Twitter. I love engaging. I love having conversations. This is the conversation that was had. Somebody posted on there and said, here's a list of all these statements that are absolute BS in the financial world. Would you add any? And I wrote back, yes, my BS statement that I hate when people say is, you need an emergency fund. And secondly, I say your credit card should be your emergency fund. And of course, the guy literally wrote, this is the worst piece of financial advice I've ever seen. Incorrect. And here's why. Emergency funds are for emergencies. That's it. It's not for everyday use. It's for the extreme thing that happens. Now, first off, what emergencies can happen? You lose a job, you need some expenses. You have a roof leak, you need expenses. You have a water heater go out, you need to pay for that. But if you don't have the money for that, that's what the emergency fund is for. But what people don't realize is the emergency fund takes out money from your savings, takes out money from your investing, which costs you more money down the road. Let me explain further. If you're a 25-year-old and you're making $60,000 a year, after taxes, let's call it $45,000 a 6 month of expenses emergency fund would be $21,000 in your account, $22,000 in your account. If you're saving $6,000 a year, how long would it take you to get that emergency fund up and running? 4 years? You're taking 4 years of your savings out of the most important part of your savings. Let me show you what that leads to. In our retirement calculator, I'm going to sit here and put some numbers in here. 25 years old, retiring at 65, your current savings are zero, and you annually save $6,000. You increase your savings by 4% a year, and your annualized returns are 9%, and during retirement, you make 6%, and you expect to live to age 100, and inflation is 3.5%. Your current income, like I said, is $60,000, and you want to live on 100% of that when you retire. Now, I made all these assumptions and I ran through them, but that's what our retirement calculator does. It doesn't just stop at retirement. It goes to the age you expect to live. I hit the generate button, and you don't have enough to retire yet. You need to save about $3,500 more per year, but at retirement, you'd have $3.5 million. Okay, fair enough. Now, like I said before, if you want your emergency fund to cover 6 months of your income, that's $22,000. Let's call it 4 years. So now instead of starting at the age of 25, you start at the age of 29 because you have to spend the first 4 years saving your emergency fund up. Let's go see how much it affects things. So remember, you have $3.5 million in the first scenario, and it still said you need to save $3,500 more per year to be able to live the rest of your life out the way you want to. I hit the generate button now. Look at how much worse it got. Now you have to save $6,000 extra per year. And at the age of 65, instead of having $3.5 million, you have $2.4 million. You lost $1.1 million. Why? Because of something that's supposed to be an emergency. I don't understand this. I don't think people... Now, guess what, guys? I'm talking purely financial. If emotionally you need to have that emergency fund, then go do it. But I want you to understand the cost to you. You're going to have $1 million less in retirement, and you have to save a lot more money at the end of the day. That's the big thing. You have to double your savings, all for an emergency fund. Now, what do I suggest instead? Credit card. Have a high limit credit card and don't use it except for one transaction a month to pay a utility bill to keep it active. And guess what? If an emergency happens, absolutely swipe that card and stop saving so you can pay off that emergency credit card and go on your way. That's way better than saving that emergency fund that's supposed to be rare. Here's a news flash. Our typical viewer is over the age of 25 and a college graduate. What's the unemployment rate for those people? Here is the St. Louis Fed website going back to 2000, an unemployment rate for college graduates over the age of 25. The highest it got here was 6%. This is COVID. It's currently at 2.6%. It hit a low before COVID of under 2%. You're not going to get unemployed. And guess what, guys? Everybody has family and friends. If a good friend of mine or a family member of mine came to me and said, Paul, I just hit a bad patch. Can I borrow a couple $1,000 to do our water heater? Of course I would do it, especially if they're a family of mine. Absolutely. That's what family's for. But you know what you're not doing? You're hurting your family by taking away that $1 million extra out of your account because now you have to go to your kids and rely on your kids when you don't have enough money for retirement. Look at our analysis here. On this analysis, you run out of money by the age of 79. Imagine that, having 2.4 million in your account and you run out of money at the age of 79. What would you rather do? So yeah, tell me it's bad financial advice. Fine, but it's not bad financial advice. Is it bad emotional advice? Maybe so. And there is a difference between the two. But it's absolutely terrible to tell people they have to have an emergency fund. I've literally never had a person tell me, thank God I had an emergency fund. Never had that. And I don't have all rich friends. But it's so unlikely, but we're preparing people. We don't understand that cost. But it's been so accepted in history. Oh, you got to have an emergency fund. It's so cliche and overused. It drives me nuts. And the entire Twitter community, the FinTwits or whatever you want to call them, all sit there and talk about emergency funds. They are hurting you financially. Now, are a few people out there going to wish they had an emergency fund? Absolutely. And that stinks. Just like eating healthy is awesome, but somebody out there is going to eat healthy and still die of a heart attack or still get hit by a bus. I cannot help that. But when it comes here to emergency funds, I want you to understand the long-term financial cost of that emergency fund. 25 to 29 is a $1.1 million difference. $1.1 million difference. It's 40%, over 40% of your savings right there could have been extra. 40% extra. Now again, if you need to have an emergency fund, go for it. If you need to sleep better at night. But I want you to understand this difference versus $3.5 million. And guys, it gets worse as you make more money. So if you're like, I don't make 60 grand, I make 120, the numbers are going to just be worse. And that's the point. So I want to explain this because I do think it's my duty that when I see that there's mispricing, and I think this is a mispricing, everybody says, go do this. And they don't realize that there's a cost to that. Nobody talks about that cost. Nobody in this world talks about that cost. And I'm here to sit there and say, listen, if you still choose to have an emergency fund, I don't blame you. I'm not going to criticize that. But if you tell me that emergency fund is absolutely necessary for everybody out there and it's bad financial advice to say otherwise, that's absolutely wrong. It's bad financial advice to insist on an emergency fund. I'm all in favor of people making decisions when they understand the whole story. But it's just like Dave Ramsey when he says, you must pay off all your mortgage as fast as possible because you're going to spend $150,000 in interest. Yeah, but if you pay your mortgage off, you might be missing out $800,000 in gains by investing the difference in the stock market or in a piece of real estate. That's what I don't like. They're misrepresenting the absolute truth. And I'm here to call that out. Is a credit card, hear people hear credit card go, that's crazy. No, it's not crazy. It's an emergency. Swipe that credit card, pay the 20% and work your tail off to pay that thing off very quickly. Absolutely. And the other thing is, guys, when you maximize your 401k and Roth IRA, here's a spoiler alert, they're untouchable by creditors. So you can go bankrupt and you still have your 401k and Roth IRA. I'm not encouraging you to do that, but that's the thing. Why would you sit there and put money in an account that if you go through it, you still might end up declaring bankruptcy and you didn't put money in your 401k or Roth IRA or any IRA? It makes no sense to me. Now, I'm sure people are going to disagree with me and I'm fine with that, but I'm trying to reiterate this final point over and over again. Financial decision, emotional decision. Emergency fund is an emotional decision, and I'm okay with that. And for a few people, it will be a good financial decision. But financially, it absolutely 100% costs you money. For the vast majority of people, it will cost you money. Not for everybody, for the vast majority it will. So you have to ask yourself if that's okay. Thank you very much. Please follow me on Twitter and tell me how dumb I am. Thank you. Take care.